Chapter 13. Turning Trees and Teeth. A little while later, Jesus heard that Pilate had killed some people from Galilee because they'd broken the Romans' rules. People wanted to know what Jesus had to say about this. Who is Pilate? Well, firstly, he's not the flying kind. Pilate was an interesting guy. You'll hear a lot more about him as our story unfolds. Basically, he was a kind of ruler of Judea, a governor to be exact. He was certainly pretty important, and he knew it. Just because Pilate killed these people, do you think they were extra bad? Said Jesus. Do you think they were worse than everyone else? Of course they weren't. But remember, if you don't change your ways and come back to God, you'll end up the same way. Let me tell you a story. The people all gathered round to listen. Once, there was a man who had a fig tree growing in his fields. It was a pretty useless tree and hadn't grown any figs in 3 years, so the man told the gardener to chop down the tree so he could use the space to plant something better. But the gardener wanted to give the tree another chance. "I'll help it out. I'll really try and look after it this year. Maybe it'll do better next year, and then if it doesn't, I'll chop it down," he said. Jesus really wanted the people to know that, just as in the story of the fig tree, God had always wanted to give them another chance to turn back to him. I think I've always been a bit of a useless fig tree, but it's so amazing that God always wants to give me another chance. A few days later, on the Sabbath, remember chapter 6? Jesus was doing more teaching. He still had more to say. While he was speaking, he spotted a tiny person in the crowd. The closer he looked, the more he realised she wasn't tiny at all. She was just bent over and couldn't stand up straight. She'd been like this for 18 years. Jesus walked towards her and called out to her, "You are set free." When he came near to her, he put his hands on her and she suddenly straightened up. She was actually pretty tall. She couldn't stop saying thank you to God. "Oi!" The man in charge of the meeting place was scowling and pointing at Jesus and came stomping over towards him. "You can't heal people on the Sabbath. That's work," he growled. He looked pretty angry and had very angry-looking eyebrows. "There are 6 days of the week when you can be healed. What's wrong with those days?" Jesus turned to face him. "Are you joking?" he smiled. "Wouldn't you take your animals to the water so they can have a drink on the Sabbath? This woman is one of God's children. She's been unwell for so long. How is it wrong to heal her on the Sabbath?" The man and the other people who didn't like Jesus looked at their feet and said nothing, but they definitely carried on frowning. They felt a little bit ashamed of themselves. But everyone else thought Jesus was awesome. "God's kingdom is wonderful," said Jesus. "It's kind of like when you plant a teeny weeny mustard seed and it grows into an enormous tree where birds can build their nests. It's kind of like when you put a teeny weeny bit of yeast in some flour and then the dough grows to be absolutely massive." Jesus kept on teaching people, even when he was travelling. He was on a journey to Jerusalem and people were walking along the road with him. Others came out when he passed through their towns just so they could see him and ask him questions. "Jesus, Jesus," someone shouted, "will only a few of us get to be saved?" You should do everything you can to get through the tiny door. Lots of people will try to get through, but they'll be too late. Once the owner of the house locks the door, that's that. Even if you stand outside and ask to be let in, the owner will say he doesn't know you. You'll say, "Don't you remember when we had dinner?" or "We saw you in the street." And he'll say, "No, I don't know you. Go away." Then you'll be sorry. You'll be stuck outside, gritting your teeth, and you'll be able to see everyone on the inside having a wonderful time. This is God's kingdom. You've got to turn back to him before it's too late. There'll be people from everywhere. Everyone is welcome, but it's your choice. The ones who don't seem special now will be the most special in God's kingdom, and the ones who seem special now will be the least special. Right then, Jesus, said one of the Pharisees, who seemed to have suddenly appeared from somewhere. Your time's up. It's time to leave. Herod's had enough of you. He wants your head. Not an especially nice way to greet someone, really. Well, you can tell that old fox that I will keep on getting rid of evil spirits, and I will keep on healing people until I'm done. And I will still make my way to Jerusalem because that's where I need to go. Anyway, Jerusalem is the place where God's messengers always seem to be killed. The Pharisees didn't know what to say to that, and they watched as Jesus kept on walking. After a while, Jesus began to look sad. His face looked miserable, and he said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, your people have killed God's messengers and failed to listen. I just wanted to protect you like a mother hen with tiny chicks hiding under her wings, but you just wouldn't let me. And then it will be too late. You won't see me again for a very long time. God's house will be empty, and I'll not be back until you say, 'The one who comes in God's name will be blessed.'" Sniffle, sniffle. Jesus crying makes me want to cry. He loved everyone so much. Why couldn't they see what was really going on?